Welcome aboard, everybody. Time to talk Buffalo Bills football. And man, just like every team in the NFL, there's just so much happening in Buffalo. Today's broadcast brought to you by our friends at Boxdrop, Syracuse, the mattress and sofa outlet, where you can save 30 to 70% on your next mattress or sofa. Well, go do it. Go see our friends at Boxdrop, where it is mattress and sofa by appointment. Good morning, Paul. How are you?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone noticed that, but when Boy Green, he's on the scene, and you look at all those photos, one of them has me speaking with the Bills head coach, Joe Brady.
Oh,
on the left there. I don't know if you noticed that. If you guys saw, if you guys peeped that, as the kids say, about 6 months ago.
Studded intro there. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
It's like the tea leaves were out. We were ready, looking into the crystal ball and figuring out how the Bills were going to just dismantle themselves and then try to tape themselves back together.
Sure.
All right. Well, when we talk Buffalo Bills football, we bring in this guy from Cover One. He's our Bills insider, the one, the only Anthony Prohaska. What's up, Anthony? How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys feeling?
I'm not feeling good. I just want to get to this right off the top rope. I'm annoyed with you, Anthony. That's just sort of a normal feeling. So that's like not new. But specifically, I went to bed every night for the last month, and I prayed to the Lord above. God, blessed be he. I said, bring Jim Leonard home to the New York Jets. He's the guy I want. He's the guy I want so bad. He's young. He's smart. He's called defensive plays. He played in the league for a decade. Highly thought of as an intelligent guy. ESPN wrote a wonderful deep dive article on him about 2017 about being the whiz kid at Wisconsin, the mastermind on defense with his unique and adept concepts.
Even played in the green and white at one point.
Of course he did. 3 years.
The Jets' plight, for crying out loud. You need to get guys like that within the Jets. You need guys that understand the plight. That's very important.
Although I doubt he understands the plight because he was there when we went to back-to-back AFC championship games and immediately left. But the point is that I wanted him so bad. Yet the Jets have gone in a different direction. And I got an update seconds before that Jim Leonard has emerged as a leading candidate for the Buffalo Bills DC job. So yeah, Anthony, I'm going to be honest, I'm pretty annoyed with you, pal. I see you've been drooling over Jim Leonard on Twitter as well, @pro__ant.
Well, you say for him to come home, but I mean, he spent just as many seasons in Buffalo. It was his first place that he called home in the NFL. So technically, if he's coming home, it should be to Buffalo. But yeah, it's funny, and I don't say this because there's so many people now who just want to attach themselves to stories or news. I'm a huge college football guy. I love Jim Leonard as a player, as a little kid. I just saw this smaller, unathletic dude just consistently make plays in Wisconsin's defense. And then he gets brought into Buffalo, and little me was like, I want Jim Leonard to play. I want Jim Leonard to play. And he gets to play a little bit, but not enough to stick around. And then in 2008, I think this is the stop that gets lost. He's the starting safety in Baltimore opposite of Ed Reed. Yes. Joe Flacco's rookie year. They go to the AFC Championship. Oh, I got goosebumps thinking about it. He was sick. He was legitimately good in that defense. And then he follows Rex to the Jets, where he continues to be sick. He's another quarterback on that defense, helping running things on the field, making good plays. I feel like he not just to say this because we're in the moment, but that Jets defense, was Revis and Rex and Bart Scott, came over, and all the adjustments they made on offense, and then Mark Sanchez and Braylon Edwards and all these pieces. Yeah. And the defense was so good, but Leonard gets left out in totality. But even on that defense, I just really liked him as a player. And then, you mentioned his Wisconsin stat as a head coach. It was awesome to watch what he did schematically. His style of defense, his philosophy and identity defensively is everything up my alley from an aesthetic standpoint and a personal standpoint, but also what I think wins in today's football, college, and even in the NFL. So to hear him emerge as a potential leading candidate for them got me super excited. I've been tweeting about wanting him as the defensive coordinator since 2023. When he left Wisconsin as the interim head coach, but then everybody was expecting him to make some big jump. He goes to Illinois as just an analyst, and then he goes to Denver. So yeah, I would welcome him with open arms and be very excited. But congratulations for, Brian Duker. Duker's got a pretty decent resume though. We'll see what happens with him. But yeah, I'm very frustrated with a lot of things happening with the Bills recently. If them hiring Jim Leonard would kind of almost make me forgive everything.
Well,
Wow.
as much as my partner is obsessed with the NFL journey of one Jim Leonard, we have not yet, Anthony, gotten your reaction to the hiring of the head coach, and that's Joe Brady. So let's get your reaction. I mean, what was it, the minute you heard it? What is it now that you've had a chance to let it settle a little bit, and as this now new head coach attempts to put together a staff, and we'll dig in on that as well. Go ahead.
I was underwhelmed at the time. I'm still underwhelmed. I don't think Joe Brady's terrible. And a lot of my underwhelmedness isn't necessarily tied to Brady. Yeah, that's a word. Don't think about it. Don't fact check it. It's a word. Trust me. I don't have a necessarily problem with Brady in and of himself. I've said it all week. Like, I think he gets too much. I thought he got too much hate this season for like what was going on. But on the other side, like, I also thought he got too much praise last year when everybody was ready to crown him like the prince that was promised as this amazing offensive coordinator. Like, the struggles that you saw this season for the Bills offense were present last year. And you started to see those cracks and those rumblings a little bit. And, unlike the horrible Stranger Things finale and kind of the whole season, you can't just take big giant sheets or staple the world back together for those cracks. That doesn't make any sense in a show or in real life. And so I don't have a ton of problems with him schematically. I obviously didn't like the struggles and the kind of wall that they hit a little bit with him. Some of the things conceptually, but I thought he was fine as an OC. I just preferred other candidates, especially if they were going to go with like an unproven head coach type of deal. There were other guys out there who I liked more schematically. I liked who they were from an identity standpoint. And also too, Brady, again, similar to the kind of Brandon Bean conversation we had last week, there's so much muddiness and interconnectedness with the shortcomings this team has had, right? Some of it is on Bean, some of it's on McDermott, some of it's on Brady, some of it's on Allen, some of it's on Babbage, other coaches, scouting guys, all this stuff, right? I don't think you can parse whose hands aren't bloody, whose hands are bloody less, and so it's still okay. Who's culpable? Who's more culpable? There's so much culpability. That's why I wanted to there's wounds. Let's clean them all out. Let's get a fresh start completely. And instead, Brady, much like Bean, is more of a retread, more of a kind of run it back type of deal. And I thought there was culpability with him in terms of the shortcomings this team hit. But, I don't hate it. I don't love it. I am underwhelmed. And kind of like the Bean promotion last week, there were just contradictions in like the stories that came out and what the Bills were pumping to Ian Rappaport and other, allegedly pumping based on Ian Rappaport is like, yeah, Joe Brady was a super sought after candidate. Everybody wanted him. He's amazing. Like all these, it just seems very planted and muddy and contrived and messy. And that doesn't mean it can't be good going forward, but I do think it just adds to the messiness, the muddiness, and the underwhelming nature of this offseason to start for the Bills, for me.
By the way, nice power play by Joe Brady there, huh? You get rid of those guys.
Too, like, even so, kind of tying into that, not necessarily the power play piece, but like Jordan Schultz reports like, the big thing that hired him was, the Bills brass was blown away. There was a home run, quote unquote, his vision for the team and how much he talked about like the importance of the connection between coaching and personnel. But of course you loved his vision. He's been in the building for 4 years. One. Two, he probably also saw the presser last week and knew everything you said and or wanted to hear. So, of course, his vision either naturally aligns with yours or you kind of set the table for him to want to give you the answers you wanted to hear. Not saying that he did that, but he had the answers to the test going in. Like the call is coming from inside the house. So, of course, I mentioned him walking out and they were like, wow, what a bunch of great answers. Of course he had the great answers. Like he's been there and he saw everything. Like, what are we doing? Sorry, I don't know.
I'm not trying to feed the flames here, Anthony, but here's the thing.
Of course, yes, you are. Of course you are.
Well, yeah. Yes. Here's the things that I question, right? So we go back to that Pagula presser where, again, all the answers to the test are there if you just want to reverse engineer them when you're in that conversation. Yes. But one of the pieces is, why was Sean McDermott fired? The playoff wall. He couldn't climb over that thing. Big playoff wall. Well, Brandon Bean could get over that playoff wall. Awesome. Joe Brady could get over that playoff wall. And now to sell to Bills Mafia, McDermott, just not the right guy. But these two guys who were also there, they're going to get you over. That's where I'm struggling because I imagine from Bills Mafia, and I am not a member, but I'm in the social media streets with you, Anthony, and I think I understand the pulse of what Bills fans wanted. They wanted something fresh. They wanted, Udinski, interesting. Wow, you're really going crazy. Clint Kubiak, if you were willing to wait. And to be honest, while that's risky to wait that long, for the Bills to have Josh Allen, that's a great recruiting tool to get anyone you want, maybe. So you can wait it out for Clint Kubiak if you feel good about it. And then to just go with things in-house doesn't mean they can't work, but it's sort of bland to the spicy, muy caliente options that were out there in the audience.
I think also, kind of tying into that too, is, towards the end of the presser, Pegula really just puts everything on Sean. Like he speaks to, that wall and the whole, not being able to get over this, yada, yada. And he literally says, quote, like, and I can't emphasize, if I could put you all in that room at that moment after the game, meaning the Denver game, it's like, how do we overcome this? It's been 1 year after another. It was the sense of, how do we overcome this? And I just couldn't see us doing that with Sean. That's why I relieved him. And I get it. That's concise. Like, you looked at everything. You felt that you had shortcomings and failures, and you didn't think Sean McDermott was the guy to get you over the hump. I think that's completely fine. Sean McDermott is very culpable. I've said it for a year and a half or so. Like, if he got fired, cool. If he stayed, cool, whatever. But to your point, Paul, like, I don't see how you come to that resolution and that's the main crux and no one else is really culpable. Like, Brady's fine. Bean is fine. Especially when after he says that, he gets asked, hey, you talk about all these team shortcomings. How much goes into analyzing if it's the coaching or the roster construction being responsible for the team shortcomings? And he says, quote, "That's a hard question to answer. I don't know how to answer that." What do you mean? Yeah, your face, exactly it. What do you mean you don't know how to answer it? You just you made the decision off of having an answer for that. Right. You decided it was coaching. You decided it wasn't the roster. So how do you not know how to answer that? And then on top of that, it wasn't coaching. It was just McDermott, essentially, is what I'm reading into at this point. And again, that could end up being true. It could end up not being true, but it still could work out better for the Bills. Anyway, like, I just find it not hard to believe, but all of this kind of being, all of these shortcomings and failures being laid at Sean McDermott's feet. While I agree he is very culpable and a lot of these shortcomings can be laid at his feet, kind of dumping all the bodies on him is a little too much. At this point, I feel like, not to kind of make, like, this isn't the cleanest analogy, but like, I feel like there's some dude for the mafia. No, I'm not even trying to like make a pun here with Bill's Mafia, but like some dude for the mafia who's like on trial for like killing one guy. And then the heads are like, we're also going to pin all these other bodies on you. So you can just eat all these bodies, help us up. And it's like, all right, cool. And I feel, yes. And I feel like that's what it is. Like, they're just like, we'll just keep adding this and adding this and adding. It's like, no, like, that, we know he didn't kill that guy. He was in another country at the time. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And just all these kinds of things.
But it's almost the only way they can proceed forward to try to get some credibility is you have to dump all the bodies on him, because there's nowhere else to dump them, because you're keeping the guys, as we just talked about,
fair.
in the building.
Yes.
These are the guys that are taking over. So how are you going to sell that? Well, because he's to blame for all that stuff.
Yes, and that's fair. But also the way they're doing it is also very like, you've got casual people who are like seeing things on NFL Network, and it's like, oh, Brandon Beane fed that to that guy. Or like, it's Joe Brady in that guy's ear on NFL Network telling him what to say at this moment. Like, it's all just, again, more muddiness and interconnectedness and all this separation that you kind of wanted to feel like they had needed to happen, especially with having all these playoff wounds and needing to get over the hump and cleanse everything. But you really haven't. You kind of put a Band-Aid on one, or not even, you changed the Band-Aid to put on a different Band-Aid, but the wound is still there. You haven't really cleaned it. You haven't really gotten everything out, and maybe you don't need to. Maybe it is more of a surface wound than we think it is. But it just seems, again, muddy, messy, and all the interconnectedness for these shortcomings. A lot of those pieces that were connected there are still here, and it makes you question if they are going to be able to get over the hump, given those shortcomings are still present in some form and fashion.
Yeah. You know what, Anthony? I mean, it makes me think. I've done, over the years, I've been in different businesses in the media, and there's a business analogy to be had here. And that is, a lot of times companies go away from the steady hand, all right, to go for, lack of a better way of saying it, the young buck, the interesting, shiny object, as Boy Green and I often say. And the problem is sometimes that the shiny object may have lots of good ideas, but does the shiny object know how to run the ship? Does the shiny object know how to keep it on its steady course? And I can tell you from my personal experience in business, the steady person is always the better boss. The steady person always, in my opinion, wins. So we're going to see how this plays out. This is a very, very interesting move here by the Buffalo Bills. Let me push it over to some comments that were made out there in the NFL. I'd love to get your reaction to this. Two notable people went public after this hire was made. One was Sean Payton of the Denver Broncos. He always has something to say about everything, and he thought that it was essentially a great hire, to paraphrase him. And Tony Romo said something very interesting. He said, while I don't condone, Sean McDermott being fired because I really liked him, I think he was a great coach, if they had a stud in the building, that's the one reason why you do this. So did the Bills have a stud in the building? Tell me about it.
I think Joe Brady's, again, as an offensive coordinator, offensive mind, I think he got way too much hate. I think he's good to, I think at worst he's fine. I think he's good to above good, more often than not. I don't think he's a stud, and I wouldn't classify him as that. I also think, he comes from the Sean Payton tree. So, of course, Sean Payton's going to be like, yeah, one of my disciples is awesome. Yeah, look at that guy. I also don't trust a word that Tony Romo says for anything. Like, the amount of inaccuracies that have come out. I don't really pay attention to, the broadcast while I'm watching the games because I'm taking notes and doing stuff. But the amount of incorrect things he says all the time, he's lost so much credibility. And so, no, I don't think Brady is a stud. I don't think that means he's bad. I don't think he's awful. I don't think he needed to be jettisoned into the sun as a lot of, people or Bills fans wanted him to be. I think he's a good offensive mind. I think he deserves to be in the NFL. If the Bills were to let him go, I think he would have been scooped up fairly quickly as at least an offensive coordinator. And who knows, maybe he did interview tremendous and how he connected things, and he is well-spoken. And so I could see some team kind of falling in love with him. But no, I don't think he's a stud, especially too with the reports that have come out yesterday and the last couple of days of, what was the big thing the Bills hung their hat on last year? The run game. And now the reports come out that Aaron Kromer was the one calling the run game on game days, in conjunction with Joe Brady. They were kind of co-manning that, which seems like a logistical nightmare that they made work. But arguably the best thing about the Bills offense can't really be attributed to Joe Brady now last year. So part of it was yeah, he really designed this great run game. It's no, maybe he didn't. And Aaron Kromer did, and now Aaron Kromer's gone. So what does that say about Brady? And then the Bills are pumping him up as more of a great CEO hire and a guy to run the whole thing, but he's still going to run the offense, which seems contradictory. Again, messiness, muddiness. No, I don't think he's a stud, but I don't think that means he's terrible. On a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 is a stud, knock it out of the park, I think he's a 7 to a 7.5, pretty regularly and consistently, which I think means that's a good hire. You're fine.
BG, you're just contemplating. He's just contemplating. He's just contemplating. I don't know. Maybe he froze up. I'm not sure what's going on with BG.
He did freeze, but that's a fantastic.
So,
he
let him
sit
there. Yeah, he's in this contemplative. This is a really good look. Let's all do that. Yeah. That's kind of cool. That's very cool. All right, I'll ask the next question while he unfreezes himself. So defensive coordinator. Let's talk a little bit about it and who the Bills might go out there and get. Interesting development in Cleveland with Jim Schwartz. Pretty angry that he didn't get the head coaching job and thus perhaps making himself available again. Oh, he's unfrozen now. Go ahead. What do you think of Jim Schwartz, or who should lead the charge here for the defensive coordinator position for the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, not Jim Leonard, I hope, but no.
How dare you? So mean.
Again, we go back to.
Hey, what are you doing? He's answering my question. Go ahead, answer my question.
Yeah. To like you said it before when we talked about, whoa, Joe Brady's a hire. Wow, I thought they could have done better with Josh Allen as an MVP recruiting tool. They could get a lot of interesting people in here. And now, if you can reverse use that, right? If I'm Jim Schwartz, who's having trouble in Cleveland, now he's under contract, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting, yeah.
Decides to fall out. But man, if I'm Jim Schwartz and I'm like, you know what, I want to go somewhere and make Cleveland pay. Go somewhere where your defense is tried and true, wholly proven, and he's done it in a million different places. He's had a ton of success, schematically speaking, and to link up in theory on the other side, you have a Jim Schwartz of offense. His name is Josh Allen, and you're like, okay, here we go. Josh Allen carries his water. I carry mine on my side. And if Jim Schwartz has these desires of being a head coach and he thought his best chance was in Cleveland, maybe killing it for the Buffalo defense and winning a lot of games and being in that national spotlight could do it from that perspective. So if I'm the Bills, I am making an aggressive all-in push. Again, I haven't seen many coordinator trades. So again, I'm not sure the logistics of how this works. If Cleveland says, no, you're not leaving the building. He's like, well, I'm not going to be the coach. And do you have to work out some form of compensation? I'm not sure. But if so, while it's crazy, I would do it if I'm Buffalo, because you want to get the best possible people in here. And Jim Schwartz, I think, would be an absolute stud home run.
Yeah, I really want Jim Leonard, but I also think there's, his defense and what the Bills have from a personnel standpoint defensively and roster construction standpoint. It's not a very seamless or same type of fit. You have to monkey with some stuff. You have to get in some new bodies, see how some current bodies fit, but they have to make additions to the roster anyway on the defensive side of the ball, at the defensive line, in the secondary, at the linebacker spot. So it's not the worst offseason to try and change things a bit and churn some stuff, though it would probably take 2 off seasons to really get there. And so he's my, what my heart wants and a bit of what my head wants. Jim Schwartz is what makes more sense given what the defense that he runs and kind of the sameness that exists between his and McDermott's defense. But you said it, like, tried and true, wholly proven, and was with Buffalo before, was a guy that fans did not want to see go. He was the architect of that cold front defense. Everybody wanted Rex Ryan to keep him in-house, but Ryan jettisoned him in favor of trying to take that round peg Buffalo Bills defense and make it fit his square peg defense that he wanted to bring in, which as we all know, did not work out. I would welcome Jim Schwartz back. And yeah, I think he would be extra motivated. Not that he even needs it, because he's just a good DC and a good mind anyway. And I also wonder too, with that type of hire, maybe he doesn't really get some head coaching options, and you get the opportunity for the Bills, you get to have your Steve Spagnuolo, or you get to have your Lou Anarumo, with the Bengals. And so that way, Brady is your Andy Reid, he's the head coach, but he runs the offense, and he doesn't have to do anything for the defense. Like that. That is ideal, I think, if you're the Bills, and kind of what I wanted for an offensive hire, where you can do the joke I always make is like Andy Reid just does all the offense stuff, and then a couple times during the week walks down the hallway and knocks on the door to Spags' office. He's, hey, Steve, are you good? All right, everything set for this week? Okay, fantastic. And then he just leaves the office, and that's all he has to do for the defense. I'd love to get that guy in for the Bills, but like if Jim Leonard, I think, could do that. But I could see Jim Leonard being a head coaching candidate next offseason or the one after. Like, I think he would leave. Maybe there's a higher, not even maybe, I think there's a higher chance if you bring Schwartz in, maybe he stays for a much longer term or tenure, and doesn't get those head coaching looks. And he's your Spags or your Lou Anarumo for a while.
Talking with Anthony Prohaska, our Bills insider from Cover One. Today's broadcast brought to you by our friends at Box Drop Syracuse. Let's just take 30 seconds to learn a little bit more about our friends from Box Drop.
Considering that we sleep nearly 1/3 of our lives, buying the right mattress is essential. At Box Drop Syracuse Mattress and Sofa Outlet, you'll get a unique experience, one that saves you 30 to 70% off retail prices on top-of-the-line mattresses like Sapphire Sleep. At Box Drop, you'll schedule a mattress fitting appointment and get one-on-one service directly with Paul, the owner. No middleman. Family-owned, huge savings, no-pressure sales designed to save you time and money. And now Box Drop Syracuse has sectional sofas and love seats as well, with prices designed to fit your budget. Box Drop Syracuse Mattress and Sofas. Set up your appointment today at boxdropsyracuse.com.
All right, we are back talking all things Buffalo Bills football with Cover One's Anthony Prohaska, our Bills insider. Go ahead, Paul. Fire off the next question.
Yeah. Now, a quick game of fact or fiction with you, Anthony Prohaska.
Or fiction. I need an open for this. Fact.
Everything always just seems like such a trap presentation for Paul. I always feel like I'm playing some kind of game with like a troll or an enemy that like I'm going to get caught. Yeah, it's Rumpelstiltskin. We made this earlier.
Door or that door.
Yeah, I'm just like, uh-oh.
Well, because to be honest, it sort of doesn't matter now, the answer to this, because like the hay is in the barn. But I heard a bunch of rumors during the season that like, oh boy, Bills could just fire Joe Brady in the middle of this thing. Is that all malarkey? Was there any truth to that at all?
Oh, I think there's always some fire where there's smoke. But I don't think it was ever anything that was seriously considered. Okay. I don't think I don't think this kind of goes back to my statement earlier of like, I don't think Brady was as bad as he was made out to be during the year. I don't think the offense was ever like falling all completely off the tracks where it's like, we got to change something. We got to do something different. I also don't think, especially if we compare it to what happened when Ken Dorsey left. Ken Dorsey being fired in season, you had Joe Brady kind of waiting in the wings and his experience and what his rep was at the time. So you're like, okay, we could probably use this guy if you're looking at it from the outside. If you were to fire Joe Brady, who's taking over? Like, I guess it probably would have been Aaron Kromer, which isn't crazy and seems less crazy now, considering that he was essentially running the run game on game days for them. But no, I don't think it was anything that was ever really seriously going to happen. I think it was a lot of just reactionary stuff to some of the struggles they had in season.
Anthony, what's interesting to me is that, when you make a head coaching hire, especially in the state that the Bills were kind of in after they fired McDermott, and you have a kind of a fired up fan base, and, maybe there are some people that feel this team has underachieved and needs to get back to Super Bowls and so on and so forth, that you'd want to make a hire that the fan base would get excited about. Like you take, for instance, my Giants. I mean, everybody's just so revved up about John Harbaugh because of his reputation. So like here, the Bills, they make this bold move of letting McDermott go, and then they just hire Brady, and now the fan reaction isn't so great. And it's like, did Terry Pagula really do his job here? I mean, was part of his responsibility in making this hire, making sure that, a lot more people thought it was a good hire, or does it not matter as long as the results are the results?
I think it doesn't matter as long as the results are the results. Every Bills fan is going to forget all of their frustrations right now if the Bills win the Super Bowl or if they're better than they were this past year. Like, they will not care. They won't look back. It won't matter. Just like
it goes a little south, look out. I mean,
1,000%.
The torches and the pitchforks will be coming much more quickly to the door.
1,000%. And especially, I mean, Brady's already a good example, right? If we were sitting here in August, and you told Bills fans, hey, in January, Sean McDermott's going to get fired and Joe Brady's going to be the head coach, I think 95% of the fan base is dancing in the street and is absolutely over the moon. You had conversations in the offseason from Bills fans being like, I don't want to lose Brady. I would rather have Brady than McDermott. We're going to have to get rid of McDermott to keep Brady. And now we're sitting here, 6-7 months later, and well, not even from that. Like, if you were having that conversation in August, 6-7 weeks from then, fans wanted Brady jettisoned into the sun. And now we're sitting here in January and fans are underwhelmed by this hire or uninspired. But yeah, I think they'll forget about it as long as the results are what the results are. And yeah, it was interesting though how they came about it, especially with the names they were getting at. Even like somebody who I talked about in October that I really like, Nathan Shieldhouse, the passing game coordinator for the Rams, studying under McVay. I liked his offense at Iowa State when he was the offensive coordinator there in 2023. The Rams lose in the NFC Championship. They bring Shieldhouse in for an interview, and it was like, oh, okay, like I like this direction. And for them to do all of that just to then be like, no, we're going to go with Brady. I think, yeah, it was underwhelming for a lot of fans. And again, to what we talked about earlier, it's more of like, isn't he maybe part of the problem of why things didn't get over the hump and hit the playoff wall? Okay, I guess we'll see what happens. But it's less, let's see what happens, and more, yeah, I got my torch and my pitchfork. Let's go after it for a lot of fans.
Listen, I know you don't turn down an NFL coaching job for the most part when it's offered to you, although we are seeing some people say, no thanks to certain organizations because of their reputations or maybe their roster. But man, here's Joe Brady, kind of a wonder kid in a lot of ways, right? From those LSU days right to where he is now. Now he's an NFL head coach and he's still in his 30s. And yet, he comes in under immense pressure, because he doesn't get that buffer zone that a lot of other young coaches would get coming into an organization and having a chance to kind of build something on their own. No, he steps into something that he's already in and says, fix it like that. And he's got, this little 4 or 5, I don't know how many years you want to put on the prime of Josh Allen, but let's just put a cap of 5 years for now. I mean, he is a human being after all right? Assuming no injuries, you've got 5 years here to get Josh Allen to the Super Bowl and try and go win one. That pressure comes on him immediately. Like, he has to perform immediately. That's why I say, the torches and the pitchforks will be at the door very, very quickly if the Bills do not succeed. And will ownership and Brandon Beane give him the tools? I mean, they don't have a receiving core still. When they get one, are they getting one? We're going to start talking about Keon again, the poor guy?
I do think two things to that. One, I think, I said it last week when we were talking about it. Sorry. I think I think they're going to make a splash this offseason. Again, it's going to be tough for them with the cap, and they don't have a ton of picks. I do think they're going to make a splash from a roster standpoint to, one, make the team better, but, two, kind of just get everybody back in favor for them. And be like, see, look what we're doing. Like, look at us. Like, see, maybe it was Sean. We wouldn't have been able to do this if Sean was here, blah, blah, blah. Just all those in between the line things. But I do think your first point there, this is a potential powder keg. Like, especially if you want to connect it to the bigger thing, right? People have been talking about, misusing Allen's prime for years and wasting Allen's prime. Now you've got a bar that was set very high, and you have to meet that bar now. Fans are upset at the way McDermott was fired and how Bean is staying and what Pegula has said and how everything is handled. You have a new stadium opening that a lot of fans are upset about because of how expensive everything is and the changes and everything. And this is like a small town type of team. Yes. Like, we're a blue collar city. Why are our tickets this much? Yada, yada. This has the potential, like for a lot of teams, but this has the potential. This could get real ugly real fast if they don't start out of the gate.
Correct.
Good. And even if it's neutral, after the first 4 games, they're 2-2, or if they're 3-3, or they're 2-3. And if they're 1-4 or 1-5, or I don't know, whatever, if the wheels are falling off or wobbling a little bit, it's going to be hyperbole. If the wheels are wobbling, people are going to act like they're falling off. This has a potential powder keg situation to explode based on what's happened last year, the frustrations of not winning, what's happened this offseason, and then Pegula, the frustrations there. Yeah, this has some powder keg capabilities to it.
Poor Joe Brady, man. I don't know if I want to be that guy these days. I mean, he's got Josh Allen, but he's got a lot of problems. He's got a lot of baggage he's got to deal with.
But also, when you have that guy, there is more pressure on you to execute with that guy.
Absolutely.
Well, how can you not do it with this guy? Look at this guy you have. So on the one hand,
blessing and a curse.
Yeah, you've got him, but then you have to do something with him when you got him.
Yeah, and poor Anthony Prohaska is getting so emotional about this. I can hear it in his voice. I can understand how strong this is. Now, a two-parter here, because when you retain Joe Brady in this way, promote, like Joe Brady sticking around, that like, wow, okay, there's nothing for Josh Allen to learn in terms of a new scheme. Like, boom, it's a Joe Brady thing. So there shouldn't be this rough patch of opportunity because Joe Brady was running the offense. So I lead into this because we asked this of Sal Capaccio, WGR 550, earlier this week. And he gave us, he's got a lot of Bills blood running through his veins, but I think you're a Bills fan. Sal covers it at this, this insider media level. So sometimes I imagine he has to be somewhat separated from it a little bit. For you, you're a fan. So I'll ask you, I'm even getting emotional about it. Apparently.
It's easy. Don't get so emotional about it. It's just the Bills. It's okay, man.
Yeah. So expectation, right? So like Joe has to do as good, at least as good as Sean McDermott did, or it's a failure. So is it essentially Super Bowl or bust for Joe Brady? And that if he doesn't do it, if he at least doesn't even make a Super Bowl, well, okay, this isn't what we signed up for. We signed up for this immediately. And with this limited window that Lurch was talking about earlier, Josh Allen's 29, he turns 30 before the next season. What do you have, a 5-year window, maybe of absolute, and maybe it's longer than that. Again, he's a superhuman, so maybe he is the LeBron James. He's going to be able to do it a lot longer because of his body, maybe, but let's call it 5 years. Like, if he doesn't do it, isn't that the expectation for Bills fans? It's this or bust, and if you don't, we're going to be very angry about it.
For me, I'll answer this in 2 ways. For me, and my objectivity, I think, overrides anything for me as a fan, ever. So for me, no, I don't think it's Super Bowl or bust. I don't even necessarily think, if they don't make the playoffs or things are worse than they were last year, it means that this was a failure. Brady's got to go. I think there's so many variables and so many ways you kind of have to see how the process is more important than the result. How do they get to the end of the year, positively or negatively? And then we kind of go from there. I do think for the fan base and even the fan in me, yeah, if they're worse than they were this past year, then it looks like a failure to most folks, even if they're looking at it subjectively. I think the fans, and I asked this on my show the other night, and some people were kind of forgiving, but a lot of people were like, they have to do at least what McDermott did, because you're moving on from McDermott to get over that hump, which means at the bare minimum, you should be doing what McDermott did, which means, and again, if you're tying all this to everything, right? Terry Pegula said, how do we overcome this? How do we get past that proverbial playoff wall, right? And he didn't see them being able to do that with Sean McDermott. That means you're promoting Joe Brady to get you over that wall or around that wall or past that which you cannot overcome. Yeah. So if you're going from the words from Pegula and what he's selling to the fan base, then yeah, I think that expectation from fans is going to be like, okay, McDermott wasn't the guy to get it done. You're telling us Brady is the guy that'll get it done. So then he needs to get it done. And because McDermott has gone to AFC championships, yeah, I think a lot of fans are going to be looking at, if the Bills lose in the AFC championship or don't reach the Super Bowl, a lot of Bills fans, I think, are going to be looking at it as, well, we could have done this with McDermott. So what was the point of getting rid of Sean McDermott? So then you're going to have to look for other positives, maybe, and how they lost or what happened, and trying to grab other breadcrumbs. Yeah, this is all muddy. This is all messy. There's a lot of emotion attached to it. And I do think there is a lot of powder keg potential. And man, Hard Knocks picked the wrong year to take the Bills, man. If they would have did it this one, the amount of views that you could have potentially got from outside fan bases and internally. Yeah, man, a lot of potential there. Or who knows, maybe it would have been just as boring as it was last year. Or maybe they were boring because of McDermott. This is really an important, and I think this was the case even before McDermott left, but what I'm about to say isn't revelatory, but this is such an important offseason for the roster, for the fan base, for sincerely the direction of the franchise. You have the opportunity to create some cap space, move on from some guys. Do you take that further and eat some more dead cap and how much churn do you do on this defense? How much do you change schematically, defensively, your identity, your philosophy? What do you do to buttress the wide receiving core? Do you hit on someone in the draft and that starts to turn something around for the long haul? Do you make a trade? Do you make a splash in free agency? How does that all tie into Joe Brady and what you do going forward? You had this unicorn, mutant, alien at quarterback for years, and you've consistently fallen short. And now you're bringing in a new coach who is kind of the same coach to finally have you not do that anymore. Can you do it? Do you not? How do you do it? How do you not do it? How does it fail? Man, this is I really do think this is one positively or negatively where we're going to look, if you're a Bills fan or just an outside NFL fan, you're not a Bills fan, you'll look back on this offseason 10 years from now and be like, man, that 2026 offseason really was great and it worked, or man, it really was terrible and started their fall from grace.
My goodness. Interesting time for the Jets, as I call them, soap opera central. Interesting time for the Giants, veteran coach trying to bring an iconic franchise back to reality or back to some kind of prominence. An interesting time for the Bills, hiring inside, okay, and trying to see if they can fix this by jettisoning off their veteran coach. We still have free agency. We still have the draft. Anthony, we'll see you every Thursday, man. There's never a lack of things to talk about, and I'm sure there'll be a dozen more come next Thursday. Thanks as always, my friend. Great to chat with you.
Thank you for having me. Enjoy the rest of your day.